The most famous cars ever built for Hollywood didn't end up in museums. They ended up in junkyards, storage containers, and forgotten garages. Engines stolen, roofs caved in, interiors stripped to bare metal. 6 of them. Here's what happened. The American Dream. In the mid-1980s, a California customizer named J. Orberg decided the world needed a limousine that was 100 feet long. Not stretch limo long, not absurdly long, 100 feet. 30 meters, 26 wheels, 2 V8s, one in the front and one in the back, each controlled by a separate driver. And because a 100-foot limousine would be pointless without amenities, Orberg built it with a swimming pool, a diving board, a jacuzzi, a waterbed, a mini golf course, and a helipad. He called it the American Dream. Orberg based the build on a 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, welding together frames from multiple donor cars with a custom ladder frame in the middle and a hinge point that allowed the whole thing to articulate around corners. Guinness World Record certified it as the longest car in the world in 1986. It became famous immediately, photographed, televised, toured. It was the kind of machine that made people stop their cars on the highway just to stare. And then it wasn't anything. At some point in the 1990s, the American Dream was parked in a lot in New Jersey and left there. Not stored, not maintained, left. The interior was gutted, parts were stripped, the helipad sat empty and the pool sat dry, and the whole 100 feet of it just rusted through in the open air. A 2013 video documented the deterioration in full, a Guinness record holder sitting in an industrial park like something pulled from a demolition site, its vinyl cracked and its frame oxidizing, and nobody apparently responsible for doing anything about it. A man named Michael Manning, who ran a technical teaching museum on Long Island called Auto Museum, spotted the listing, made an offer, and hauled it to New York. It sat behind his building for another 7 or 8 years while funding dried up and county bureaucracy intervened. The rescue had stalled before it started. In 2019, Florida collector Michael Desir stepped in. He purchased the American Dream, funded a full restoration at his Deezerland Park Museum in Orlando, and committed to doing it properly. The restoration cost approximately $250,000. It required donor Eldorados, rebuilt drivetrain components, a fully reconstructed interior, and a restored pool and jacuzzi. Every foot of it rebuilt from the frame out. On March 1, 2022, the American Dream rolled out of Deezerland at 100 feet and 1.5 inches, breaking its own Guinness record by a fraction of an inch. It now lives in Orlando, where you can go see it in person. A machine built for spectacle, abandoned to rot, and returned to the world more complete than it had ever been. The Elvis Cadillac wagon. Cadillac never built a production station wagon. Not in the 1950s, not in the 1970s, not ever. But if you were Elvis Presley, that was merely an obstacle. On the morning of September 26, 1974, Elvis walked into a Madison Cadillac dealership and commissioned a one-of-a-kind build, a full-size Cadillac DeVille converted into a station wagon by the American Sunroof Corporation, painted white with a pink pinstripe and a vinyl top. He wanted something he could haul musical gear and luggage in on his runs between Las Vegas and Memphis. He bought 4 other cars the same morning and gave those away. This one he kept. Elvis used it. He drove it himself. He made the run from Las Vegas back to Graceland in December 1976, a 1,500-mile haul that would turn out to be his last road trip by car. 8 months later, he was gone. And when his estate was settled, the wagon was sold. And then it simply vanished. For roughly 30 years, one of the most singular automobiles Elvis ever commissioned was completely unaccounted for. No museum had it, no known collector had it, no auction house had cataloged it. A custom, one-of-one Cadillac with a direct and documented connection to Elvis's final years, and it was just gone. It resurfaced in the mid-2000s, appeared on eBay in 2015 with an asking price of $1.5 million, and eventually made its way to the Volo Auto Museum in Volo, Illinois, where it was featured on the television series Ridiculous Rides, and has been on display ever since. The odometer shows approximately 8,000 miles, which, for a personal hauler driven by Elvis himself across 1,500 miles of American highway, is a number that requires a moment to sit with. The museum's manager has said he takes it out for a drive occasionally, just to keep it running. 30 years missing. Found again. Still moving on its own power. Car 3. The Cobra Mercury. In 1986, Sylvester Stallone starred in Cobra playing a leather-gloved, ice-cream-eating LAPD detective named Marion Cobretti. The movie needed a car to match that energy. What they landed on was a customized 1950 Mercury, chopped, channeled, supercharged, fitted with a roll cage, nitrous oxide on tap, and a license plate that read Awesome 50. Hollywood customizer Eddie Paul was commissioned to build 4 of them. 3 were stunt cars, built to be destroyed, and they were. 1 broke apart during a jump, injuring the stunt driver. The 4th was the hero car, close-up ready, fully dressed, and built to perform. This isn't the hero car story. It's the story of one of the stunt cars that survived. After production wrapped, the surviving cars were sold to a junkyard in Los Angeles. One was purchased from that junkyard by a private buyer who needed a pre-1954 car with a roll cage for racing. He ran it in the Carrera Panamericana through Mexico in 1988 and 1989, then garaged it. It sat for 16 years. The man who bought it from the junkyard held on to it, but didn't restore it, didn't display it, didn't publicize it. It just sat in Washington state while the 1980s became the 1990s, became the 2000s, and the movie it came from faded into cable television reruns. A Virginia-based businessman eventually tracked it down. He flew to Washington state, examined the car, bought it, and then did something that sets this story apart from most movie recoveries. He sat down with a copy of Cobra and went through it frame by frame, making notes on every visible detail, every chrome piece, every panel modification, every distinguishing mark he could document from the film itself. He brought the car and his notes to Eddie Paul. Paul spent 2 years rebuilding it to screen condition, working from the movie as his blueprint because 2 decades had blurred his memory of every detail. The result was a verified Cobra Mercury, not the hero car, but a car that was on that set, that ran those stunts, rebuilt by the man who built it the first time, using the film as the instruction manual. Car 4, the Ecto-1. The 1959 Miller Meteor Cadillac ambulance that became the Ecto-1 in Ghostbusters was purchased for production in 1984 for $4,800. It was reportedly in poor condition even then, a used professional car with high miles and deferred maintenance, exactly the kind of vehicle Ray Stantz would have bought on a shoestring budget, which, of course, was the point. After the first film, it was used again for Ghostbusters 2. After that, it went into storage, and then it went on display at the Warner Brothers studio tour in Hollywood, where it sat inside a building and deteriorated anyway. The roof leaked. Not outside, inside the studio. The Ecto-1, one of the most recognized movie cars in American pop culture, a vehicle that had appeared in one of the highest-grossing comedies in history and spawned decades of merchandise, toys, animated series, and cultural shorthand, was sitting in a display facility with water coming through the ceiling onto its roof. The condition became visibly poor. Anyone who saw it on the studio tour in the years before its restoration saw a car that was losing its battle with time and institutional neglect. For the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot, Sony funded a complete restoration of the original Ecto-1, returning it to drivable condition for the first time in years. The car was subsequently displayed at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, where it could be seen properly, restored, intact, and finally treated as the artifact it had always been. The irony is difficult to overstate. The studio that owned the car let it rot in its own building. It took a reboot nobody asked for to save the original. Car 5, the Back to the Future DeLorean. Universal built somewhere between 6 and 8 DMC-12 DeLoreans for Back to the Future in 1985. The exact number has never been officially confirmed. Several were destroyed during production. Others were damaged beyond practical use. The hero car, the one most associated with the film, was eventually donated to Universal Studios Hollywood and placed on the studio tour. The locations of the remaining production vehicles were largely unaccounted for in the years that followed. In 2011, a DeLorean reported to be one of the original production vehicles was discovered in a storage container in California. The condition was significant disrepair, heavily weathered, stripped of several of its iconic modifications, the stainless steel body oxidized, and its flux capacitor housing gone. Without the modifications, it barely read as the car it had been. Authentication efforts subsequently confirmed its production lineage, and the car was eventually restored and exhibited publicly. The DeLorean story is inseparable from the collapse of the company that built it. DMC went bankrupt in 1982, 3 years before Back to the Future made the car the most famous time machine in cinema history. John DeLorean had been arrested on drug trafficking charges in October of that year, in a sting operation he would later claim was entrapment, and the company folded before he was acquitted. The cars that survived went in every direction, some to collectors, some to dealers sitting on unsold inventory, some to productions that needed a vehicle that looked like it came from the future, and at least one, apparently, to a storage container in California, where it sat in the dark for years waiting for someone to open the door. Car 6. The Rocky Aoki Porsche Limousine. Rocky Aoki founded the Benihana restaurant chain. He was also an offshore powerboat racer, an amateur wrestler, an amateur balloonist, and a general-purpose spectacle seeker who approached most problems in life by asking what the most excessive possible solution might be and then doing that. His son Devin became an actress and model. His son Steve became one of the most recognized DJs in the world. Their father was built for a different kind of stage entirely. In the late 1980s, Rocky commissioned a one-of-a-kind Porsche 911 limousine. He took 2 1974 Porsche 911 Targas, perfectly good air-cooled sports cars that any Porsche purist would consider sacred, cut them both in half, and welded them together into a stretched limousine with a Porsche 959 body kit fitted over the whole thing. The result was bizarre and magnificent and completely of its era. Inside, a minibar, a partition with a roll-down window, custom airplane-shaped sconces, a VCR, and a rear seat that folded into a bed. Rocky entered the car in the 1991 One Lap of America, a week-long endurance event circumnavigating the country. His reasoning was straightforward. The bed in the back meant one co-driver could sleep while the other drove. That is exactly the kind of logic Rocky Aoki applied to everything. He died in 2008. After that, the Porsche limo began its long decline. The engine was stolen, not lost, not sold, stolen, lifted from the car by someone who didn't care what it was or where it had been. The targa top disintegrated, opening the interior to the elements. The interior itself was stripped. The title disappeared, which in practical terms meant the car existed in a legal gray zone that made it nearly impossible to sell through any legitimate channel. It began appearing on Craigslist, on Facebook Marketplace, on various auction platforms, always described as a roller with no motor and a fascinating story, asking prices ranging from $18,000 to $45,000, depending on who was listing it and how optimistic they were feeling. In 2024, automotive journalist Sam Smith reported that a Northern California enthusiast had tracked the car down and hauled it to his shop with the intention of restoring it to its original One Lap of America livery and white leather interior. Whether that restoration is complete is unknown. The engine is still missing as far as anyone publicly knows. The title situation is unresolved. The car that Rocky Aoki built as a monument to his own particular brand of excess is sitting in a shop in Northern California, and the man working on it may finish it or may not, and the world may find out or it may not. Some cars get their endings written. Some are still waiting.